Okay, we're going to do a quick review of how to use Strava for our purposes to record training for Heritage Cross Country. You can see I already have the icon on my desktop, but maybe you haven't downloaded the app yet. So it's pretty simple. Just like every app, you would go into your app store or whatever it may be called on your phone, search, type in what you're looking for, Strava, have it search for that, and you can see there it is on my phone screen currently. And you can see it says open for me, and that means, of course, that I already have the most current version. And I think you could probably handle installing the app from there. It's a free app, so there isn't any issue with that. So please consider going through and getting the app and using Strava for our purposes in recording training. And I'll get out of that right now. Okay, so now I'll show you a few things in Strava, just common things that first I think we would find purposeful and useful, but second, things that I know have been questions over the last year, are coming up on a year since we've started phasing into using Strava as our primary means for recording our training. So I'll just click on Strava, on the Strava app, and you can see I'm already logged in. Of course, once you log in, it should keep your login. But I know one problem that a lot of people have had with the various apps we've used for different things, Team App included, they forget their password, it logs them out, and then they don't remember what email address they used, or they don't know how to retrieve their password. So that's something we can address later. I won't address that today, but just something to keep in mind, that you need to make sure that you use an email address that you will remember that you use for other things, even if you don't go to it regularly. You can see that it automatically opened up to the people that I'm following, so that could be many of you, or it's other people that I know in the running community, other coaches, or past runners, or family, friends, whoever. It doesn't matter. But that's what's cool about Strava, is you can see that it's very social, and you can see different people's training coming up on here. And it's neat just to be able to follow along, and if people make comments, read what their thoughts were, and to see what their run was like. That's part of the fun, but it also is utility for me in my coaching you. So that's what your followers stream looks like, and there's different things you can do in there. For example, you can see below coaches, there's the thumbs up on the left. I can acknowledge that. In the middle, there is a box where I can tap on that, and then I can make a comment if I'd like. And that's something that I should probably do more of with you guys, just to take next steps in making this more fun and more useful, by giving you feedback on some of your efforts. So you see in the middle it says you, so that means me. And you can see here's my cool down walk yesterday, and my run that I did before that. And you can see I'm getting faster, so I'm coming for you guys. I just got to stay healthy, and that's a key, isn't it? But you can see it just records the training in reverse order, and you can click on your run, and it opens that individual run, or whatever, bike, effort, whatever. If you need to edit it, click on those three dots at the top, and you can see it pulls this up. You can add photos, edit it, do some other things, delete it if you need to, if it was a mistake. I'll cancel out just because I just wanted to show you where to go in and edit it. But that's where you could go in and edit it, change your title. Mine just defaulted to morning run because of the time of the day, but you could change it to what the workout was or whatever you want, and things like that. So that's what my feed would look like. You can see the next one is clubs, and you can see that it defaults to my primary club, which is our Heritage XC club, and that's the one that I would like current team members to join. That is currently set as a private club, so you'll have to request access to it. And once I see that you've requested access, I will approve that, and then you'll show up on our stream here, and you can see a couple of people there. If I want to see other clubs that I'm in, I just tap on that down arrow, and you can see it switch to an up arrow, and there are a few other clubs that I'm in. The one that I want more broadly, your family and alumni and anyone else who's a fan of Heritage Cross Country to join is that one called Hawks Alumni and Friends. So that one I currently have open as a public club. Anyone can join it. I will go through and clean that up of people that I don't think belong there, and then mark it private at a later date. But I just wanted to make it easy for people to join. So if I click on the Heritage one, it opens up into this screen. You can see our nice picture there from camp last year, and some other things are summarized, just some stats and some other things are summarized there. If I click on activities in the middle, then it goes back to showing a kind of reverse order of people who have logged their activities. Okay, I'll go back. One thing that's not as easy for me to show you on the phone, but it's a critical use for me, is if I go on through my desktop computer, I can get a current mileage for what you've each individually logged, and that's where I can look at individual training much easier than you can see it on the app. So of course there are some things that I can do on my computer or that I've figured out how to do that maybe aren't as obvious to you, but just reasons why Strava is so important to me. So I'll get out of this, and it doesn't matter where I am, I guess, but you can see up at the top left there's a plus in a circle. It's not always at the top left, I don't think, but that's an important next function, because that is one way that you can, and I just clicked on that and it brought this down, this drop down menu. This is where you can, in this case I was in the Heritage XC club, so if I click on post, that's where I'd be able to post a message to everybody in the club, or I could add a photo, which I don't really use those two things very much, but there's things that we could use more. But the one that you might want to use regularly is that one called manual activity. Manual activity is important because if you don't have a smartwatch like a Garmin or an Apple Watch or anything like that, then one primary way to log your runs on Strava and still take advantage of the online training log is to click on manual activity. So I'll click on that. You can see it pulls this up and it defaults to run because that's in my personal settings as my primary activity, but you can change that. Down below you see, if you click on run, it'll pull up this other menu and you can kind of wheel through and pick whatever it was. I'll cancel that. Leave it as a run. It might ask you to enter a time. If it does make you enter a time and you don't know how long you've been running, just put 1 second. That's what we've been doing, and that's been fine. That's worked out fine for us over the last year. If you do want to run a distance and know its accurate time, and you don't have a smartwatch, you can use your phone as a timer, or you can use just a regular watch and then manually enter your time in that way. I'll also show you another way that you can log your runs using your phone, but if you don't want to use that way because it's not efficient on your battery, or I don't know if it uses data or what it does, but maybe you don't want to use the other way. But I'll show you another way just in case. But you can enter your time there. But it's not critical to enter a time necessarily, but it can be useful. The critical one is that middle one, distance, so accurately log the distance that you ran. And I've never really insisted on how you count your miles. For example, warm-ups and cool-downs. I think my personal opinion is if you're on your feet running, you should count it as your total for the day. It is nice. Some people will use their smartwatch and log each individual component separately, by using their watch to do that work for them, rather than going in and keeping track manually of 3 individual efforts. Either way, it still gives me the grand total of your effort for the day. Seeing it broke down is the next step in utility, but it's not a critical utility. So if you want to count your warm-ups and cool-downs in your total for the day, you warmed up a half mile, you went for a 3-mile run, and you cooled down for a half mile, then you can log 4 miles, and that's good enough for me for starters, and then we can take it to another level later if you want. It'll calculate pace for you. You can click on the when and change the date and time. You can change the title of your run under name there if you want. It's not critical. It'll default based on the time of the day. It'll say morning run, afternoon run, whatever. You can add photos, which are kind of fun if you want to. You don't have to. You can change the type of run under there if you click select next to type, and that's another thing that's not critical. You can see I have it set up to know what shoes I'm currently running on, and you can have several pairs in there and have one as your primary. And what that does is it'll keep a tally of how many miles you have on your shoes, which is a conversation that comes up periodically, not necessarily regularly, but it's an important conversation that we will have at some point for some reason, and having that number can be very useful. It's not critical. We can kind of figure it out or ballpark it, but it's just kind of a neat thing, and another good example of why having an app like this is better than us just doing a spreadsheet or whatever, which works great too. It's working great for Coach Wilson at White Pine, but I like to try using an app because it's closer to real time if you keep it up to date. So these additional utilities only sweeten the deal for us. I never use the commute one. You don't really have to do anything with that. Under description, you can put some notes, say something witty, do whatever you want in there, or not. You can just leave it blank. You don't have to rate how you felt, but you can if you want. And these other things at the bottom, you don't have to really do anything with that. And that's it. That's a manual entry. You can see it may look semi-grayed out at the bottom where it says save activity, but once I change something, it would make that an active button, and you can tap on that and save your run at that point. So don't forget that saving it is all the way at the bottom, even if you don't scroll to the bottom and change those things. I'll just cancel out because I'm not actually recording a real effort that I did. This is just a demonstration. So another important thing, well, before I go on to that, let me show you what I was talking about a minute ago. Another way you can record efforts is at the bottom you see that record button, and if I tap on that, it pulls up a GPS map, and you can click start and stop and then save it, and that will also act in exactly the same way that a smartwatch would behave, where it'll record your route, your actual route. It will um, use some of that data to populate some of the fields automatically for you, including distance, which is, as I said, the most critical one. So just wanted to show you that quickly as another option for those of you who carry your phones with you. But I'll close out of that because we're not going to log anything today. The last thing that I want to go over that is pretty important is about our safety and security. Being a social media platform, you're putting personal information out there, and it could be kind of public. So what I encourage you to do is to set your privacy settings in a pretty strict way for managing who can see your data. And you should do that with all of the different social media platforms, whatever they happen to offer in that way. So as far as Strava is concerned, I'll just pull up what I suggest you do, and you guys with your mom and dad can make that decision based on my advice for Strava and using your own discretion, but then also using your own discretion for your other social media platforms. So click on profile at the bottom, and you can see at the top there's a gear icon or a gear button. Tap on that, and you can see some of my different choices here for managing my profile and such. What we're going to look at today is this one called privacy controls. So I'll tap on that, and you can see what mine are set to. And I don't want you to set yours to what mine are. I should probably have mine a little bit more private, but I do think that you can use this as a starting point. What I do suggest is that you change all of these top 4 to only followers can In fact, I should change that on flybys for mine. Well, I guess it says no one can see flybys, so I'll change that to no one, and then I'll go back. So you should change it to whatever the most strict. If it says no one like flybys does, or if it says only followers, I would suggest to put what you can to at least only followers can see that. And then when you do allow people to follow you, make sure that it's someone you know, someone you trust, your teammates, your family. Of course, it'd be nice if I can see your things, but once you join our club, I'll be able to see your things. One more that I suggest, and I won't open it because it'll show my private information that I have set, is the one called privacy zones. You should set a privacy zone around at least your home address. And what you do is you just click on that and you type in an address and then you set a radius. I suggest not using the minimum, which is I think an eighth of a mile. I would go up to maybe a quarter or a half mile radius around your house. And what that does is puts a bubble around your house and it doesn't display the data to others of where you're any time that you're within that bubble. But that bubble kind of moves around a little bit, so it's not exactly the same bubble from day to day. So it makes it harder to pinpoint where you're starting from if you're starting your runs from home. I just clicked on heat map by accident, but when I was trying to keep my phone awake. But that's another one that you should consider doing, is making it so that right now when it's orange, my activities are included in the heat map. When it's off, uh, they're not contributing, and I think it's really cool to contribute data to the public. That's kind of citizen science, but I recommend you keep that off, not to include yours in uh, the other in the public's data, because we don't want. I mean, it's easy enough for people to know that we practice at a certain time, mostly from a certain location every day, but we don't need to put that out on the internet for people to collect that data. They can figure that out if they want to be malicious, and they can find their own way to dig that information up. But we're not going to give it to them, so I suggest you turn that one off. So I'm getting out of there, and I think that's about it for now. It's already quite lengthy, so I don't want to make it any longer than that. But I hope you will get on Strava soon if you're not already, and if you haven't been logging and you are on Strava, please start logging your training as we start ramping up into the summer. I'll likely also make a second version of this to capture some of the things that happen when you use an actual PC to record your training. So let me know if you have further questions and we'll go from there. And with that, we'll sign out. So see you later.